Hey, Pretty Girl Club. So I just wanted to make a follow-up video to the Ice Spice Cleo Trappa situation. So people were saying that Ice Spice is a colorist. They said something about how allegedly Ice Spice, she called Cleo like black ass or, something like that. Something about her skin tone or about her being dark skinned. So my thing is, let's just say that she did do this, okay? Let's say that she called her darky or blacky or something like that. Why didn't Cleotrapa say that when she was recording her expose on Ice Spice? Wouldn't she call her a color? Like, wouldn't that be one of the first things that you would call someone if you're mad at them? Wouldn't you expose that? And so, once again, this Ice Spice Cleotrapa thing, people are calling it colorism when it literally just sounds like two girls in their 20s who are beefing. It sounds like two girls clout chasing off of one another. They ended up not getting along. Ice Spice is under the control of her label, basically, and they just are beefing now. And so I've noticed this pattern, though, where dark skinned black women, they will do things like they'll give their friends the N word pass. Like they'll give their white friends or their mixed race friends the pass to say the N word. They will give their mixed and light skinned friends the pass to call them black ass, or very similar to, remember Miss Mulatto and her dark skinned friend? She said something about her vagina looking like roast beef or something like that. But you saw the dark skinned black woman kikiing along with her. She was laughing along with her. And so this is another area where unambiguous black women mess up, because I've noticed that if they're cool with you, then sometimes they'll call themselves black ass or the N word, or they'll say, oh, I'm dark or I'm dark skinned or whatever. And then they may even allow their light skinned or white boyfriend or whoever to make jokes with them about these things in private, but then suddenly when they get mad at you, they'll turn around and say you're colorist, texturist, featurist, and racist. And so another thing that I've noticed is a lot of dark-skinned, unambiguous black women are raised by light-skinned mothers or mixed race mothers, or they have cousins and stuff who have a different complexion, and they say things about their hair texture and their complexion all the time, and they never say, hey, it's not okay to call me that, or I'm cutting you off. I've noticed that a lot of unambiguous women have this bad habit of letting things slide, and then they will try to strategically use isms against you once they're no longer cool with you, or once they no longer gain social status off of you. So it's like, it's cool for us to rap lyrics and say the N word. It's cool for us to talk about being black or being dark. It's cool for you to make jokes about my skin color or hair texture or whatever. It's cool for us to joke with each other when we're friends. But then suddenly, when we're no longer friends, oh, you were my bully and you're a colorist, texturist, featurist, and racist. So which one is it? So do you see what I mean about them using this situational colorism? So it's like you're only a colorist if they can no longer benefit off of your friendship. You're only a racist if they no longer can be friends with you or date you. You're a colorist if you're a black man who doesn't date black women. So it's like if you don't date them, if you're no longer friends with them, if they can no longer clout chase off of you, then suddenly they're going to situationally use isms, or they might use your former inside jokes between the two of you to try to tarnish your name and drag your name through the mud. And we already know that cancel culture doesn't work anyway, because people are still listening to Ice Spice's music. People don't actually support Cleotrappa's music. They just don't like Ice Spice. So this is not about Cleotrappa becoming the next Grammy Award winning rap artist. Absolutely not. She's never going to be on the same level as Ice Spice in terms of her career, because unambiguous women have already been ignoring her for years. But I've noticed that using the ism conversation is a very common way that they will try to get attention from you. So, and also, I have a question for dark-skinned women. What's wrong with being dark? Like seriously, if somebody were to talk to me and they were to say, "Oh, look at her yellow ass," or "Look at her light-skinned ass," or whatever, I don't actually see being light-skinned as an insult. And so, if anything, I actually would laugh along with that and be like, haha, yeah, that's funny. That is what I look like. And I love the color of my skin, of my booty, or the color, you know what I mean? It's like, I don't even view my skin tone as even being an insult. And so, another social climbing mistake unambiguous black women make is they allow their own phenotypes to be used as an insult. And it's like, if I were dark skinned and somebody calls me dark, bitch, that's not an insult. Being dark is pretty. That's how I would see it. I would be like, yeah, and I'm pretty with my dark ass, and I look good with my black ass. That's literally how I would see it. That's called alchemy. But I've noticed that when unambiguous dark skinned black women don't know how to practice alchemy, they will turn around and try to make themselves the victim. And then they'll say, oh my God, you called me dark. I'm offended. Well, why are you offended by being called dark? Why are you offended by people calling you what you are? The only way that somebody has the power to offend you is if you're actually sensitive and insecure about that particular thing. Nobody can check me about having curly hair, for example. Oh, look at your curly ass hair. Yeah, my hair is curly, bitch, and I love it. And it looks great. And I'll flip it in your face. You know what I mean? Like, if you actually love yourself and if you actually love your features and your skin tone, nobody has the power to insult you anymore using your skin tone or your phenotype. This is exactly what I did with the term exotical. They thought that by calling us exoticals, they thought that by calling us that dumbass term, exoticals, that we would somehow be put down. And it's like, okay, well, I am an exotical, bitch. Now the exoticals have united. How you like them apples? And I'm getting paid off of it with my exotical ass. So, do you see the difference in reactions? And I've also noticed a tendency to call people colorists and then they have no proof, no quotes. They'll it'll basically just be a light skinned person who's beefing with somebody dark skinned. And then people will randomly bring up colorism. Like, oh, you're only beefing because she's dark skinned. Oh, you just don't want to date her because she's dark skinned. And it's like, everything is not to be blamed on your dark skin tone. Your skin tone does not determine your personality, right? Your skin tone is not a handicap, right? You're more than your skin tone, right? You love saying all those things to light skinned people. So why does it suddenly not apply when you're a dark skinned black woman? And I've also noticed this thing where sometimes women will try to kiss your ass, or they'll try to I don't know, clout chase off of you. And then basically when it doesn't work, oh, well, that bitch is colorist because she didn't want to hang out with me. Or, this guy is a colorist because he just didn't want to date me. Or if you don't think I'm pretty, you're a texturist, you're a featurist. And also, I have another question about the whole colorism thing. Is it once a colorist, always a colorist? Because I see people on TikTok, they're like, oh, this is how you can tell if your light skinned friend is a colorist or if they were a colorist. It's like, okay, so if we're judging people based on if they were ever colorist, would that not make the entire dark skinned black community colorist? Because how many dark skinned mothers and fathers portray colorism to their sons and daughters? So it's like, why is it that a dark skinned black person can be forgiven for their colorism, texturism, or featurism? JT from the City Girls. Why is it that people overlook that? They have no problem. Azalea Banks. I've heard so many colorist comments, texturist and featurist comments from all kinds of unambiguous black women. So people brush over that, but let's say a person happens to have any sort of privilege. If you are a privileged black woman in any way, if you have privileges based on your skin tone, hair texture, or facial features, I've noticed that there's a double standard because it's once a colorist, always a colorist, basically. If you're mixed or something. But if you're a dark skinned black woman like JT from the City Girls and you talk about people being nappy headed or burnt, then suddenly, oh, whatever, it's not a big deal. And then I also hear this idiotic phrase about how black people can't be racist. That's one of the most idiotic things I've ever heard in my life. Let's look up the definition of the word racism. And I've noticed people will say that racism is prejudice plus power. No, that's only one form of racism. Okay, there are many different forms of racism. There's systematic racism, there's individual racism. So you can be a racist person as an individual. I don't care if you're black, white, purple, or green. You don't get absolved from being colorist, texturist, featurist, and racist because you're a dark-skinned black woman. And also, what does it tell me about your self-esteem if you remain friends with someone who you view as colorist anyway? So even with that situation with Lotto, with her friend saying that her vagina looks like roast beef, well, my thing is, okay, well then what does that make that dark-skinned black woman? She must be an internalized colorist then, because if she is willing to tolerate colorism, if she genuinely thought that that was colorist, texturist, and featurist, she should have said something to Lotto right there, right? So why is it that we're always calling out everybody else for their internalized colorism, but you'd never call out the dark-skinned black woman for her internalized colorism? I've literally seen videos calling out every demographic of people: black men, white people, mixed race women, mixed race men, non-black men. But I don't see any content until the exotical space came about, of course. I don't see any other content where they're calling out unambiguous black women and their own internalized self-hatred. So you can't stay friends with an abusive person and then turn around and be like, oh, well, that person was a colorist. Then why did you stay friends with them if you thought they were colorists? Oh, what? Because you were clout chasing? Oh, what? Because you wanted her social status to rub off on you? Because you wanted to destiny swap with her and you thought that by approximating yourself to her that you could somehow steal her status or whatever her purpose is in life? And then suddenly when it doesn't work, now she's this evil, mean, colorist, texturist, featurist, and racist. Meanwhile, you were kikiing along with her the entire time for years. You were laughing along with her, or in some cases, I've heard dark-skinned black women make jokes like that about themselves or about black men. And be like, oh, look at his nappy-headed ass, or look at his, so, and then they'll turn around and say to a light-skinned woman, oh, we're all black at the end of the day. Okay, so if we're all black and it's all exactly the same, why are you offended when a fellow black woman, quote unquote, why are you offended when the fellow black woman repeats the same thing? So once again, do you see the double standard? Do you see how they're actually ruining their own social climbing abilities by enforcing these double standards? And we can see right through it. You won't be able to get away with that over in the exotical space. And so it's like, if all of these people are colorists, Miss Mulatto, Ice Spice, all mixed race or light-skinned women, all black men, all white people. If all these people are colorists, what does that say about you for allowing the colorism and also reinforcing that colorism by turning around and having babies with these white men? Because I've heard unambiguous black women say that they don't want their daughters to be as dark as them because they believe that their daughters will literally have a better life if they have a light skin tone. But if I, as a light-skinned person, were to say, oh, I don't want my daughter to be dark-skinned because I want her to have a good life just like me. I want her to be light-skinned. You would call me colorist AF for saying something like that. So once again, do you see the double standard? And this is why I no longer take it seriously. And I'm never apologizing for that because, first of all, I'm not going to cape for women who wouldn't cape for me. So if I am in unambiguous black women's spaces and then they're saying, oh, you're centering the conversation around yourself. And, if I'm decentered from your conversations, guess what? You're going to be decentered from mine. And so you can't get mad if you meet mixed race women in real life or light-skinned women or whoever who have decentered your opinion in their life. You don't get to be the center of everybody's world. And also, I'm no longer scared of people calling me colorist, texturist, featurist, and racist because at this point, they're literally calling everything some sort of ism to the point where it has literally lost its meaning. Like if you don't date them, you're colorist. If you don't want to be friends with them, you're racist. If you don't want your hair to look like theirs, you're texturist. If you don't think they're pretty, you're featurist. Anyway, what do you ladies think? Let me know in the comment section and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.